Resident Evil 3 Remake, an anticipated follow-up to the critically acclaimed Resident Evil 2 Remake, but does it live up to the standards of previous entry set? Yes and no. Whilst it adds new mechanics that definitely improves on the previous game, story-wise it's a shame that the game doesn't have the same length of content as a previous entry. But of course, that's where the game's multiplayer, Resident Evil Resistance, comes in to increase the overall value of the package that you're receiving. Yo, what's up guys, it's GoldKarat back with another 24Karat reviews by gamers for gamers, where the 24Karat Club and I review our experience of games together. If you'd like to join in on the reviews, then make sure you follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or join the Discord. All of the links are in the description below. And without further ado, let's get into this Resident Evil 3 Remake review. Resident Evil 3 Remake follows a very similar format to its predecessor. A T-virus infection has broken out in the same city as the previous game, and this time the story encompasses where the game left off last time, starting before and ending after Resident Evil 2. The game's story felt more grand than Resident Evil 2, given the fate of the entirety of Raccoon City is at stake if the cure for the T-virus zombie disease isn't delivered to the government in time, or else they'll nuke the entire place. This time the game follows the story of Jill and Carlos. Throughout the story there is one main bioweapon antagonist that is hunting down STARS members, Nemesis, with Jill formerly being a member herself. Nemesis feels like a more threatening antagonist than his similar counterpart in Resident Evil 2, Mr. X. I mean, the dude literally pulls out a flamethrower and a missile launcher on you. If that isn't scary as I don't know what is. Jill and Carlos are great characters, witty but serious at the same time, and I was instantly invested in keeping them alive and safe. Carlos especially was a very charming character.
I'm not gonna die on you, leave you in a cold, cruel, Carlosless world.
And the human antagonist Nikolai does well at coming across as an absolute dick. On the other hand though, there's very little reasoning behind Nikolai's motive and why he wants the whole of the city to be destroyed. Maybe I'm just too good of a person to see where his reasoning is coming from other than making money, but I've seen more entertaining, relatable, and understandable villains in other video games. I also like the Easter eggs and throwbacks to the Resident Evil 2 remake, including revisiting the police station, giving more context to the story overall. Resident Evil 3 sticks to the if it ain't broke don't fix it formula, with gameplay and pacing being very similar to Resident Evil 2. You'll continue to do a lot of inventory management, shooting zombies non-stop only for them to get back up again later, solving puzzles by matching items and reading documents to help. In comparison to Resident Evil 2, there was one major change to the gameplay, that being Jill and Carlos's unique counter abilities, with Jill having the ability to dodge roll enemy attacks and Carlos being able to counterpunch enemies. After you counter, you get a slow motion bullet time moment that is very useful and integral to killing a few enemies in the game. This is also one of the best things that could have been added to the game in my opinion, as that was one of my main complaints with Resident Evil 2. Having to rely on just running around to dodge enemies' attacks in Resident Evil 2 just felt too clunky. I did find some points in the game, even on standard difficulty, where some enemies were very difficult to kill without your character seemingly being one hit by them. Call me bad at the game, but even after unloading a full magazine into these enemies and then having to switch to another weapon, these enemies would one-hit me, and this occurred several times in a row. Later on, I realized that grenades were effective against these enemies, but at the time when I was struggling, I didn't have any on my person. After you complete the game, there's some post-game content, including 2 new game difficulties, Nightmare and Inferno, if you complete the game on those harder difficulties. You also unlock skins and new guns with infinite ammo, giving the game a little more reason for you to play it. And then, of course, there's the multiplayer. The multiplayer of the game, Resident Evil Resistance, was surprisingly a lot of fun and definitely increases the overall longevity of the game. The game places a group of 4 survivors up against a single mastermind. The mastermind views the map from the perspective of cameras placed around, and chooses where to spawn a variety of zombie enemies against against the survivors. The mastermind chooses these zombies in advance by choosing a deck of cards, including the mastermind's ultimate card, which summons one of 5 different bioweapons depending on who the mastermind is, such as William Birkins or Mr. X. The mastermind can also take control of certain zombies to more strategically choose how to play them. I personally found that playing as the mastermind was a lot more fun than playing as the survivors, since you get some sort of psychotic glee just watching the survivors die in front of you when you place down your zombies. Is so good. One thing I did find disappointing with the multiplayer though was the fact that you only had one mastermind to choose from initially at the beginning of the game, and you had to unlock the others. It would have been better if you could start off with at least 2 masterminds and not unlock the others, so that there was more variety in the game initially at least. The survivors have to work together, completing objectives such as collecting keys, accessing terminals, and breaking biocanisters to progress through the level's 3 areas and escape from the mastermind's madness before time runs out. There are 6 survivors in total. Each survivor has different abilities, such as revealing items and enemies' locations, dropping heals for your teammates, increased melee damage, critical shots when shooting, to name a few. I found generally that playing as the survivors was more difficult when playing against a great mastermind that knows what they're doing. A coordinated team of survivors that sticks together using their abilities effectively will pose a threat for the mastermind, but these kinds of teams are generally rare to come across. The graphics are fantastic, as you will have seen throughout the video, with the game keeping the same gory high detail as the previous entry. All of the environments are highly detailed and character animations are still flawless. The cinematics are even more engrossing this time around, and the game is very action heavy with some awesome set pieces. The music for the game fits a creepy and intense atmosphere, and the audio for all of the sound effects are also excellently executed. The soundtrack makes effective use of intense drums, violins, and other effects to enhance the chaos that can be happening in the game. The sound that comes from the monsters also emphasizes the creepy and sometimes disturbing nature of the enemies. If you're buying Resident Evil 3 solely for its campaign, then you might be a bit disappointed in what it has to offer. Whilst the campaign is very enjoyable, it clocks in just under 7 hours in our playthrough, while others completed the game even quicker. Compared to Resident Evil 2's second playthrough with a different character, which made the game feel like a different experience to the first playthrough, this game only adds harder difficulties and skins, which really did not motivate me to play the game again. This might be enough for the hardcore crowd to replay the game, but for the standard gamer, most won't want to replay this game again. It therefore feels as though you're getting less bang for your buck, and for a full price $60 game at release, that's too expensive to justify the campaign length. But if you're also interested in a good multiplayer game, then that makes the overall package much more appealing, with the game providing a solid multiplayer experience. Of course, you can find the game a little cheaper nowadays, so I would recommend experiencing it if you can, especially if you are a fan of Resident Evil 2's experience. Personally, I just slightly preferred Resident Evil 2 to this game, but Resident Evil 3 is still a fantastic example of how a remake should be done, with solid gameplay, fantastic graphics and cinematics, and a great story. The 24Karat Club gave the game an average rating of 7.5 out of 10, and my score for Resident Evil 3 is a 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching this 24Karat review. If you enjoyed, then leave a like on the video. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews in the future, and also get involved in the reviews by checking out the socials below, including Twitch, where we play the games live and watch together. Until the next video, this is GoldKarat signing out. Peace! Doom Eternal may look like another shoot 'em up filled with gore, demons, and mayhem. Oh my god! What is this weapon?